You are now listening
You are now listening to the Black Male Educators Alliance podcast.
Lifting our voices.
Lifting our voices.
Welcome everybody to another episode of the BMEA podcast, Lifting Our Voices. I'm your host, Chris Watson, joined as always by my co-host, Mike Payne. And we got a special guest in the building, Dr. Curtis L. Lewis. Gentlemen, how we doing today?
All right.
Good. Mike, how you holding up?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well.
Okay, good. All right, you know, here on the BMEA podcast, we're going to talk about some current events. We also want to just talk about some of the work that BMEA is doing on here in the educational field. And, you know, whenever we have a special guest, we also want to highlight the work that person is doing. And today, I think it's a special episode because, you know, this person, if you follow BMEA, you know, Dr. Curtis Lewis is somebody that you know. You may know him as Doc or Kurt. He goes by a lot of different titles, but we thought now would be a good time to actually, you know, if you haven't had the chance to get to know him, or if you do know him, just get to know him deeper. So we definitely want to shout out Curtis for taking the time to jump onto the podcast because, you know, I think a lot of people are going to listen to this episode and they're going to leave enlightened and also inspired by the work you're doing. So we definitely want to thank you for taking the time to get onto this podcast today. So Kurt, how you doing, man?
Man, I'm doing all right. I appreciate you guys having me, you know. Appreciate the work you guys have been doing over the last few months. So I'm happy to join in the conversation for sure. Looking forward to it.
Good. You know, as always, when we start the episode, we just do like a self-care checkup, see how the brothers are doing. So I'm going to start with you, Mike. How you holding up, you know, since the last time we've been here live on the podcast?
Man, it's been a while since we last talked. I think a lot has happened. More importantly, like just between the COVID and, you know, this revolution that's going on outside with police brutality. And I think people, like, I almost feel like it's an awakening. A lot of people seeing the truth that we've been talking about for years about police brutality, and it's spilled over into education. It's spilled over into all these systems that, you know, people have been ignoring, that's been so racially unjust. So on that end, I'm glad to see that there's been like an awakening in 2020. I'm not going to lie, the COVID, this lifestyle that we had to live has been wearing me down mentally, you know, trying to keep a positive attitude, trying to be creative with my son and keeping him entertained, and also trying to be positive for people who are struggling maybe more than me mentally in this space.
Yeah.
But you know, it's been a challenge, man, and more than anything, I appreciate like all the little blessings that I have, and I try to count them as much as possible. So
Cool. What about you, Curtis? How you been doing, man?
You know, I agree. Everything Mike said, just hanging in there. You know, I've done since COVID has taken over the world. I would say I spent a lot of time doing a lot of self-care. Like I figured out the importance of that, right? So, you know, walking around the neighborhood, something I haven't done. I actually got to see kind of like spring happen. The leaves begin to bud and grow on the trees, and seeing the grass turn. So that was actually kind of cool to see that, like actually like see it literally happen as you're walking on a daily basis. So it's been good, and I think it's been important because this work is, you know, you're seeing everything, you're watching TV, you're hearing everything, you're reading stuff, and it can get so like overwhelming. So taking the time to just like take care of you has been important. So I've been focused on that, and it's been helping a lot because, you know, it was moments up to about a month ago I was like tense and uptight about things. So it's helped loosen me up a little bit for sure. Yeah. So I'm feeling good right now.
Good. I'm happy to hear that. You know, I was like reflecting a couple of days ago how when this whole thing started, it was like cold outside here in Michigan, and now it's like 90-degree days, and, you know, just that large amount of time is really, you know, just amazing when you think about it. You know, I've been doing fine like you, just finding some different self-care. I've been working out, just trying to stay sane and just trying to still improve, you know, despite all the things that's been going on in the world. I think that's a good time just to address the hiatus of the show. You know, we were going pretty strong with the podcast, you know, on a bi-weekly or weekly basis. And honestly, after the uprising, as Mike mentioned, started, and I'm just going to be honest with the listeners, I felt I didn't feel inspired to jump onto the podcast. And I was watching Dave Chappelle stand up, and I think he kind of captured that word. People were like, well, what do Dave Chappelle think? And I think, he said like the streets are talking. And I kind of felt like, what is my voice at this time? What can I say that's really going to be as important as what's happening in these streets? So for a while, Mike would be, hitting me up like, hey man, let's get on it. And it took a while. It took me to come to that realization to really grapple with what I was kind of, I guess, dealing with. And I talked to my wife about it. And I've seen a lot of people say, you got to find your place in the movement. And like Mike has said, and Curtis alluded to, that's the work we do on a day-to-day basis. That's why I'm really like that's my thing, school. I can't even escape it. So the podcast, we were gone for longer than anticipated time, but we're back now. And I think like just kind of coming out of this and understanding just, my place in it has kind of got me re-inspired, and we just want to kind of kick it back off. But we know for those people who do consistently tune in, we definitely appreciate you. We have, different educators and also students that tune in. So we're back and just wanted to kind of acknowledge that.
And to your point, just real quick, man, I just thinking about what you were saying, man, like, and to even Curtis's point about self-care, like when you immerse so much into the work, like we're constantly working to fight against injustices. So when stuff like this uprising is happening and police brutality, and you're seeing it constantly and everyone's sitting at home and they can't avoid it, I think, that takes a toll on us. So I definitely feel you, like at some point you got to be able to take a mental break to kind of like readjust or just sit in your thoughts a little bit to kind of like, re-energize yourself and refocus.
Mm-hmm. Kurt, how did you, you're a black man, and I know stuff hits you like it hits all of us, but like when you see police brutality and like, just how do you deal with that? Like, I know you go through a range of emotions, but just kind of maybe give some insight into how you feel about that, and, what's your response, and how do you keep, how do you stay from going crazy in America, but also staying productive and making a change in your community?
Yeah, that's good. I think, this has been happening for a long time, right? It's nothing new, right? So for me, it's a constant reminder and a motivation to kind of keep doing the work on a day-to-day basis, right? And I think to your point earlier, you said, people got to find their role in the movement, and some folks are going to protest. They should go out, like physically go out and protest for sure. Some people are, going to do things, protest within their work. They're going to change things in their workplace. And so for me, I think for a moment, this George Floyd thing, I asked this question before, like, what about this situation? Because we've seen this happen before on TV, like, recorded on a video. Like, so this is not the first killing, what we've seen on video, but it was something about this one, I think, that kind of like sparked the movement in a sense. I think it had a lot to do with the way that the officers just like stood nonchalantly and just like put his knee on his neck. Like, I think that moved me in a sense, like, I don't care. Like, there's no regard for this particular life that I'm slowly taking away. And so I was fired up for a minute. It was tough. I didn't want to talk about anything. Like, I'm going to meetings and doing stuff. I'm like, if we ain't talking about this, or you ain't acknowledging this, and you want to like, hey, how's it going? And life is moving forward, like ain't nothing just happened.
Yeah.
I literally sit in the meeting like, am I tripping? Like, are you? So, that was some meetings. Those first couple of meetings, I'm sitting here like, I ain't got nothing to say. I was mad. Like, don't talk to me. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to talk to anybody if you're not figuring out ways to process this. So I think also the sort of the perfect storm, I guess, if you will, between COVID and its, disproportionate impact on Black folks, poor folks, folks of color, particularly Black folks, let's be direct about that. But also then you couple that with this, it just was like whoa, right? And so I was mad, angry, and was processing a lot for a while. But then I reminded myself of like, I have agency in what I do, not in BMEA, not only in BMEA, but in my other space as well. And so let me do that. Let me continue to do this work, and let me just go harder and be unapologetic about it. And so that sort of went from like anger to like this renewed sense of energy around like, this is what I got to do. And if you're not with it, you got to go. You're in my way.
Yeah. No, that's deep. That's deep. Yeah, it's a lot, man. And, my wife, just to mention briefly, she processes by talking through it. Did you see, like, would you, and me, I'm more of a, I guess solo processor. So sometimes I wouldn't have things to say, but it would be so much on my mind. And I finally, was able to kind of get that stuff out. I think that was helpful. But yeah, we process it in so many different ways. And there was something about this that sparked, I think, literally a global movement in a way that we haven't seen in a long time, to say the least. But we're going to touch on that probably a little bit more. But Curtis, we want to use this episode to get to know you, some of your work, and also some of the origins of BMEA. So for the person that is just getting to know you, we'll let it start off by saying, like, who are you and why do you do this work?
Who's this guy? So, I would say my nickname, but I'm not going to do that. That's not everybody's business. That's Curtis, I'm from Chicago, born and raised, and I claim that as much as it's funny because I've been in Michigan more than I've been in Illinois and Chicago. So I left Chicago at 17 to go to Michigan State, and I've been living here since. So I spend more time in Michigan than I have in Illinois. But your home is your home. Your home base is your home base, and so that's still mad love, and that's just my home that I'm always claim. But Michigan's been my second home, and Detroit for sure is mad love for the city of Detroit, and just the folks here, like some of my best friends and family reside here. So I started at Michigan State. I was a no prep major, actually. I was one of the people I thought I was going to be. Actually, thought I was going to be an actor one day. Denzel was like my role model. Outside of Michael Jordan, I knew I couldn't play basketball, so I was like, that was like. But I thought I could act. You know what I'm saying? So I went to Oxford University to study drama, and really thought I was going to do that thing, and then thought I was going to do medicine. Thought I was going to be a lawyer because I was in debate clubs and was traveling to like these boarding schools and competing and winning against these so-called smart kids. And so I was like, man, maybe I should be a lawyer, blah, blah, blah. Went to Michigan State, no prep, and my first job was a tutor. And it was like, that was it. It was like, oh, this is what you're supposed to do. Mind you, we used to, it was 6 of us growing up on the west side of Chicago. And so, we spent a lot of time with each other, my siblings. And so we used to play school. And guess who was the teacher? Me. Didn't process that. Was the teacher, right? And my first job as a 12 or 13-year-old was actually a teacher's aide. I was a teacher's aide. And so, I just feel like, man, as I began to reflect, like, God was telling me along, like I was born to do this. So, graduated Michigan State, taught for a while, decided to go back to school because I began to be, I taught at an alternative school. So I did some work in the juvenile facility and also worked in an alternative program, the Lansing schools. And I really struggled with what I saw and how those students were treated. And just like, I was like, something is wrong with this. So I wanted to just go back and just like learn more. So I went back to graduate school, met this guy, Chris Waston. He was in high school and worked in various programs like the program he was in, preparing folks to go into teaching. I did all kind of stuff there, ran restorative programs, blah, 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 worked with community agencies, started a mentoring program, and then went into one of the biggest roles I think I've had was to open a school in Detroit, a K-5 elementary school. So I was founding principal of Hayford Academy Elementary School, which was one of my sort of proudest moments, and hired this guy Chris to come in as a teacher. So he's one of the founding teachers, and just being able to hire your own staff and create something from scratch was phenomenal. So I take a lot of pride in that experience as well, and then moved up to teaching. I mean, not teach, but to be a principal in the middle and high school, and really enjoyed that quite a bit in a kind of a turnaround situation. And then BMEA sort of was developing along the way. So, oftentimes going to school, not oftentimes, all the time, I was the only Black male in my undergrad classes, right? And so I was like, dang. And so then I was teaching, and I'm the only Black male teacher in the school. And I'm like, man, or, the only one in the elementary, like we got like 12 elementary schools, and I'm the only one. Right. And so, that was problematic for me. And then I'm attending PDs, and I'm like, I'm feeling isolated. I'm feeling alone. And, it's cool. What y'all talking about in teachers lounge, I don't want to talk about. Y'all, the way I'm trying to think about approaching these kids was like, I'm on an island by myself. And so it's like, man, we got to do something about this. Like, this can't be the case. Like, who would want to come do something so isolated? Right. And so, I got a fellowship, teacher, America Cheese Fellowship. And this is when I was principal at the middle high school. And they asked us, prior to the fellowship, to come up with a problem that we wanted to solve. And so I picked this one. Like, this is one I want to figure out a way to recruit and get more Black males in education. So when a friend of mine, William Hayes, and I started thinking about this national organization, Chris, you helped us do the website. That was too big. Payne hired him as a teacher at the high school, came on, him and I started talking, and we was like, man, we just need to do it here. And so from that conversation, we started having little gatherings at my house, talking about it, not knowing what we was going to do, not knowing what we were doing. We just know, like, we want to recruit more and engage them more in this process of getting into education. So did that. And 2017, we became official. And so, like, I appreciate Payne in particular at the time, because he kind of like pushed me, like, let's do it. It's all you need is that one person, like, let's do it. I've been doing a lot of talking about it, but it was like, let's do it. So here we are. That was a long version of that, though. So
that is, and I appreciate a lot of the history there. And there's so many points in that story that we can go deeper on. So I'm just gonna pick a spot to go a little bit. I'm gonna kind of rewind when I met you, as you kind of alluded to. A lot of people don't know I met Curtis when I was a senior in high school. I think I was going to my senior year. So imagine me at like 16 years old at the time, like I was a young guy. But, and we as I, the story goes, I went to Michigan State as well, and we started working at a mentor program. So even back then, I don't think it was some fluke that you had a mentor program for young boys of color. I think ever since I've known you, you've been on this thing where you wanted to, provide mentorship and opportunities for young men, particularly young Black boys, or, just the group that was overlooked. So, like, talk a little bit about where that came from, because I know there was some intentionality and some fire that you always had there, even before we got into the whole thought of a BMEA. So what was it about just helping young Black boys that, maybe intrigues you?
I think growing up, we know the data and what it talks about, right? But also just growing up and just seeing a lot of my friends and who ended up, in jail or, dead, and we know that same story, right? And so, that was always something like, man, what can we do differently, right? And then for me also, it was like, as a male growing up, it would have been nice to have like stronger mentors to sort of lead the way. It was a lot of women like who were very supportive outside of my mom, my grandmother. It was like within the schools, like the teachers who I connected with were a lot of the female teachers, which was great. Like Ms. Hill, and she rests in peace, like she is like my guardian angel, like love her to life. And so like I had those, but I'm like, man, it would be also nice to have that male to male connection as well. And we just, I just didn't see that. So I thought it was important to provide that level of support now that I had the opportunity to do so, to do it. So that sort of sparked from my own personal, but also personal viewpoints, but also personal experience, seeing other folks who needed that.
Good. And I want to ask one more question. I'm going to let Mike jump in here. And this is kind of like an anecdote, but it's also something I just noticed from observing you over the years. Back when I was in college, yeah, you have a uncanny ability to build relationships with people. And I remember one of the first things I think we may have done, you like took me out to dinner or like lunch or something. You know, it was definitely food. You know, I remember that, right? And like, but I noticed like, but it was like, it was one of the first times, you know, for me at that time where I was like sitting across from somebody, and it may be like a small group of us, but it was like high level conversation. It was like respect. Like I see something in you, like you looking at me, I can see you were willing to invest. Like, where does that come from, man? Like, cause I don't think, like seriously, cause I've come across people, but they not willing to invest. They like, well, I'm here and you there. Like, but I was like a young college student at the time, and here you are pursuing masters and PhDs, but you still found the time to invest in me, and not just me, other people as well. So where does that come from?
Man, you know, it's doing the work. Like, you know, you got to climb and bring people along, right? So if you climb by yourself and then you want to go, oh, what, let me bring y'all, they all the way down, you know, at the bottom of the mountain, right? So I believe in that, right? And I think, you know, it's just like literally God, like that's what I'm supposed to do. I don't see no other way. I get frustrated when I see people don't do that, right? It's like, of course you should do that. And so it's like, I get energized by seeing other people be better than me, because unfortunately for me, I had to figure out a lot of this education thing, figure out like what's it mean to go get a PhD, to get a master's degree, to finish up my bachelor's degree, to go to college, right? Like I had to figure a lot of that out on my own, how to survive in college, right? So I wish I had somebody I can call that was like lived on campus or that I could talk to in person and say, hey, you know, I'm struggling with financial aid. How do I get this support? Or, you know, thinking through this. And so I always wish I had that. You know, think I was able to survive, and I found people to support me doing that, mostly women, that it was important to me to make sure that if I see a potential person when I see a person who has potential and not like support them, like shame on me, right? So that I think that's where that comes from. It's like, I don't see no other way of being. That's just who I am. There's nothing, and you know, ain't nothing fake about me. I'm gonna be real about it. Here's what we're doing. I'm gonna hold you accountable because I'm gonna hold myself accountable. And this is part of who I am.
Mike, can you jump in? I know we kind of jump in wildly on this timeline of events, but you met Curtis when you moved here, and talk maybe about like what made you want to, work at the school that he was the principal of, and how did those conversations of really like pushing to say, okay, listen, dude, we need to actually do this and not just talk about it. Where did that come from your end?
So what I'll start with is that, like, even coming to Detroit, in my mind, like, I already had in my head what I wanted to do with education, right? Like I had already felt like from my little bit of experience that I had that like it was important that we figure out a way to change how we educate Black students, right? So applying to schools in Detroit and applying to Henry Ford, even when in an interview talking to Curtis, like I could see already early on like his vision, right? Which wasn't just like, oh, I want Black men in education, but like we need to be present so that we can make the real change, right? And one of the biggest things I admire, because I had a Black principal in my old school in Baltimore, right? And he was a mentor to me in a certain sense. But like you had said, and you took kind of what I was going to ask him, he was very intentional about his mentorship of Black men. You know what I mean? Like went out of his way. You know what I mean? And he doesn't like praise, so I don't want to like put him on the spot, but I noticed that. You know what I'm saying? I noticed that he was intentional about like the support, the growth of everyone. And even if you didn't believe in yourself, like he was very adamant about like pushing you to your potential. And what I was going to ask you, Curtis, was really like, in this concept of Black leadership, especially Black male leadership, especially in a profession that is female, white dominated, like where do you see, like how did you develop those leadership qualities? What do you think are like the most important? And like how was it navigating as like already a minority, as being a Black male in education, but also being a Black male in like this leadership high role? I know that's a lot of questions, man.
I was like, so which one you want to answer first?
So talk about being a Black male leader and like those qualities that it takes to be a leader in this educational profession.
You know, I think being a leader in general, I think it's about taking a risk. Like you got to be willing to take risks. You also got to be able to take a stance. I think, get frustrated with leaders who just, let me wait what the next person going to do, or, like believe in something and stand on it and come up with your plan and let's execute, right? So I always believe in that. I don't, when you're a leader, you got to be okay with, not being popular at times, because you going to get criticized. People going to always be like, I ain't like your decision on that. Okay, cool. I get it. I respect that, right? So being okay with that, being comfortable with that. I think also being a leader is creating other leaders, developing other leaders. I think that's important. I think it's a community approach to leadership that I like to take. And I can't do this alone. So how do I build a capacity to other people to support me in this work? I think we get tired out when we try to be the man. Like, I don't care about that. Like, I just want to get the work done. Who's willing to help? If you got to be the face for the day, let's do it. Like, I don't need that attention to be able to do the work. So I think also being willing to step aside, and also as a leader, also know when to follow. I think that's important, even when you're the leader of an organization. I think it's important to do that. So those are just some of the things. And as a Black, I think being clear in the politics around this, right? Like knowing, like staying strong and being unapologetic around your stance around things, your beliefs around things, and your experience around things and concepts and ideas or whatever, being strong around that, but also being able to get other people on board, people who may not understand, to get them on board. I think is the task of the leader, to get people to rally the folks to jump on board, regardless if they have similar experiences or not. Sometimes that's hard because you're Black and you talk about Black stuff, folks look at you like, of course you think that way, right? So how do you help them understand, like, yeah, I'm thinking this way because of my experience, but I'm also thinking this way because it's important for you to think this way as well.
Right. No, it does. Absolutely. And, so with this mission, with like bringing more effective Black male teachers in education, like, where do you see this going in terms of like, what does education look like when it has the right amount of Black males represented in all schools?
I think,
Let me preface this. I think it might help.
Yep, go ahead.
Because you already know, like, my focus has always been around the education of Black people, right? People of color. So like Black men being in education is important. So where do you see like this shift in education, especially in this time frame with what's going on in the world with racial injustice and it being more prevalent and more, well, not prevalent, but obvious? Where do you see, like, how do you see Black males? How do we change education from our lens?
So, I just had a conversation earlier with someone. We were talking about changing, or is the system broken? I said, no, the system ain't broke. It's doing what's intended to do. So you can't break nothing that's been working. It is working. It's doing what it's intended to do, right? And so I think it's important, there's this argument out here that schools and Black kids were doing better when we weren't, that's desegregation is one of the, that was pretty bad for Black folks, right? But it didn't help. And things have sort of kind of gone down here from there. Some folks will argue, right? I think the representation is important. Diversifying the teaching profession is important. One. Two, I think it's also important to begin to, for Black, and honestly, and I mean this, just because you are a Black male does not mean that you are on the same page, or if you're for liberating or dismantling the system. Some of us get caught up, right? So I want us to be able to support making sure those who are doing the work to create a learning experience for students that the current system would allow, or didn't allow for, or didn't even intend to allow. And so really thinking about what does it look like, the curriculum, the pedagogy, the instruction, right? How we go about engaging kids. What is our discipline policy, right? Are we restorative in our nature and engaging kids? So those are the tools and the things, the mindset, or the tools that we want folks going into the schools to have, whether you're a Black male or not, but in particular about Black males, it's important to have that. And also just on face value, you're going to look like a lot of those kids. Those kids are going to see a lot of them in you. And so it's important to have more Black males in education with that mindset, to shift what we're doing and how we're doing it, to do the good work. That's important. So just putting a black man in front of a school that's the first step. But you can put one in front of a classroom and they just not connect, having relationship issues, or white supremacy is real, and they get us thinking this is one way of being, and so we get caught up in that web as well and get it confused, and so we up there just doing much damage to somebody else. And so it's important that it's both, like the representation, but also the mindset to do the work.
Yeah, that's good. Now I'm gonna jump back into like just leadership, because for those who don't know, BMEA being an organization, I mean, like we meet, we have roles and responsibilities, and while you may see, like me and Mike on the podcast, we got a whole team that make this thing work in a lot of different ways. But I'm even sometimes surprised of like you don't see more of Curtis. Mm-hmm. Because he's the founder, and trust me, on the calls he's there, with us. He's letting us know. But because even me, like being just like a kind of a marketing mind and branding, sometimes I want to see more of your face out there, and not just like your face, but also just your voice. I know like the work that you do, but I've noticed, after knowing you for 10 plus years, you have somewhat of an like. I guess tendency to sometimes want to let other people not do it, but you don't have like an ego to be in front. And sometimes even for me, that kind of is frustrating, because I'm like, man, this dude, like the world needs to know you. So I guess, how do you manage that, right? When you are, you got big titles and all kind of things, and not just big titles, but a brilliant mind, but also you try to empower other people. So how do I guess you find that balance of leading by letting your voice being what's heard, but also by trying to support other people? Because I think you do a great job of it, but I'm not going to sit up here and lie that sometimes it's not a little bit like, all right, dude, Kurt, I need you to do this. So like, how do you just kind of find that balance, and why don't you, because you can be out all over on blogs and doing all kind of stuff. So like, how do you balance that, and what's your sort of motivation around that?
Chris, that's a good question, man. And, this is a level of vulnerability here, right? You're putting this out here on Front Street, which is good. I'm all about that. I think there's a period, where I think there's a lot of people who I know, like, you know the people who are out here doing the work. They got blogs, they on TV, they on CNN, they doing all this good work, right? And to me, it's like, yep, that's cool. But like, what are you really doing? So there's people who can talk a lot about what they're doing and then like, not really doing anything for real. So for me, I want to be like, I feel like I ain't did nothing yet. Like I'm still like grinding behind closed doors. Like I want my work to speak for itself. So I can get up there and like, yeah, we're doing this and we're doing this and we're doing this. And this is how and this is what you look at, your social construct. And you can use all those wonderful words and engage people, right? Yeah, that's cool. But for me, it's like, I want to do the work. So if that's to me taking away time for me to do the work, then I don't want to do it, right? And I know there's a need. As CEO of the organization, I get that. Like, and we talked about that, and I don't have a problem doing it. Y'all can see I like to talk. I don't have a problem talking, but I want to get other people the opportunity to grow as well and give them that space too, because I don't want it to be like the Curtis show, right? Like I don't, and it's not, because this ain't Curtis Male Educator Alliance, is BMEA, and BMEA ain't just Curtis, right? And so I know there's others that contribute to this. I just want to give them the opportunity. So that's sort of why I be thinking that way. And then honestly, I was just like, man, the work is going to speak for itself. So I'd rather be here doing the work instead of spending 10 hours writing blogs and doing this and talking here. There's a balance, so I'm working on that. I want to do that. But that's really where it's at. It's nothing that I think too hard about. I just be like, well, you can go ahead and do it. I'll be sitting back here doing this. But I'm working to find a better balance around that. Because to your point, I'd be listening to a lot of people out here talking. I'd be like, what? What are you talking about? Like, you doing what? Oh, okay. You think that's good? Okay. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, man, people like, this is a brilliant idea. I was like, I probably thought about that 10 years ago. And so I ain't out here trying to be famous. I'm out here trying to do the work.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of it too. I'm gonna let you jump in here, Mike, because just as like a brother, sometimes I do feel like I understand your mentality. Sometimes I'm like, man, but sometimes I need you to be the face speaking on behalf of, Black people, Black youth, or at least be one of the main voices rather than, XYZ person. And sometimes I think people can get misconstrued. I don't know what people think, but like everything we do on BMEA, like you have a integral voice on it, even if you're not the face out there for it. And that's why I kind of appreciate how we work. It's like, you see a lot of things going on. But like I said, you allow people to kind of flourish in their area of expertise or passion. But it's always like, it's a team effort. So, we definitely, wouldn't be where we are as an organization without you just kind of, providing that. So I don't want anyone to get it twisted. But on the side, we do sometimes want to say, all right, listen, we need some new voices being heard, you know what I'm saying, on the city, state, national level. And we got this guy right here called Curtis Lewis who could be that person. So
I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, it's real.
No, I share Chris's sentiments, but I also understand the mindset behind being behind the scenes though. So yeah, I understand the strategy for sure. My question for you, and as Chris talks about like your mind and where it's going, BMEA obviously being your brainchild, like where do you see it going? And like I would say in its final form, maybe not final form, but maybe in the near future, like what does BMEA become as an organization or in terms of education?
Yeah, it won't be final. It's gonna keep evolving.
Yeah, that's why I had to catch myself. Yeah,
no, you're good. Right now, I think for us, we have these fellowships going, right? So I want to, continue to push those. And also I think, and this is no knock on my teacher ed folks. I love y'all, my good people, all in MSU. You live across the country. Love y'all. Do great work. But, I want us to be, to play a role in developing teachers, like pre-service teachers, as well as those who are currently doing the work. So, because I think we have a model around what culturally responsive restorative practices, those going hand in hand, relationships, which is all a part of both of those concepts, that I think would benefit those going into the field and those who are already, and here's the thing, we're in the work, right? So we're actually in the schools. Again, people are, educating and doing work, and you can support people around theory and all that good stuff, but we're doing the work. So what better group of people to learn from than the folks out in the field doing the work, for sure. And I'm always want to find ways to blend research and practice together better so that our higher ed institutions and our K-12 institutions work better together. But we're doing the work. And so like there's research and things that we're doing in this level we know works because we're doing it. And so I want us to be that organization that provides that level of support for schools, their current teachers, and not just Black male teachers, like Black male teachers for sure, but like all of their teachers, right? And I want us to be able to do that work for our pre-service teachers as well. So that's like a 2, 3, 5 year plan, getting us to that place. But that will be just beginning then,
No, and to that point, I was one of those people that changed careers. I wasn't a traditional education major, but in my teacher certification program, the one thing I thought of was like, man, wouldn't this have been greater if there was more of a focus and concentration on the Black teachers that were in the program, right? We kind of felt ostracized at times. And when I met you and I saw what was going on at the school that I was working at, I said it to you, I said, man, like, wouldn't it be great if we could train all teachers to be in an environment like this? And it's more inviting, right? So you're not just training them to teach for liberation, and they're in a space where they are bred to be leaders, and they are taught and kind of like supported in their leadership. So I think that's an important piece when people think about teacher development. It isn't just like, talking about the pedagogy, right? Well, specific pedagogy, but it's also talking about like, what is our purpose and how are we really going to develop these individuals into being the educational leaders that we want them to
be. Yeah, no, well, for sure. I think that's important. Can we talk about, when we talk about as you guys both have worked in schools where I've been a principal at, right? In the middle high school, we had a high number of Black male teachers in our school, right? Teaching. And, you know, I don't think our kids, like, I don't think we did a good enough job, like, talking to kids, like, hey, this is like, look at us, we're here, right? And we had, you know, we were talking about those job fairs we had, career fairs that we were having, and we never thought about having a teacher session, right? Until, you know, later on, and we thought about it, right? So it's like, I think we've shown the benefit. Research has shown the benefit of Black male teachers in schools, not only for Black kids, but all kids, right? So it's there. We just got to do it. But we got to, how do we get, you know, our sons interested in that as being an option? Are we saying, hey, Jonah, hey, CJ, you know, hey, Mikey, you thinking about being a teacher? No. Have we done that? No. Right. And so, like, starting our own households, we're educators, right? Like, not saying our kids should do, you know, what we do, but, you know, like, we at least, that should be an option, you know, and I don't think we think about it enough to do that, to push that more.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. Let's get to know you a little bit, Curtis. Tell us, like, we're getting to know you already, but just on a little side note, like, tell us maybe like one or two of your biggest inspirations that inspire the work you do. And, you know, I know some people you may mention. I'm just curious who you would name as like your biggest inspirations for the work that you do.
You know, man. You know, that's easy. It's easy. Malcolm X, like, by far. Like, you know, I ain't gonna even beat around the bush about it. You see him, I mean.
Yeah, we see him behind you right now.
Right, he's behind me. You know, he on this wall in my office at work. He's there, like, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because he was self-taught. Like, he came from a situation, and he was a product of this system, right? You know how the system, like, broke the family apart, and, you know, his mom, you know, went into, you know, psychiatric place, like, those things, and so he was like a product of, like, what's wrong with society, but then he overcame that, like, on his own. So it wasn't like school that did it; he did it, right? So the system wasn't meant to work for him. And I was fortunate enough to work at a school that we actually found some of his old records in Lansing. We found some of his grades, and, you know, they weren't great. But it was weird. It was like it was in this weird little closet, but it was his report card. Thought about taking it, but I was like, no, there's probably some, you know, not legal about that.
Yeah.
But he's always inspired me for that reason, and, like, his brilliance, his thinking, that he was talking about years ago that's still relevant, like, today. So, like, and his by any means necessary mindset, like, we gonna do this, you know, let's go. And I appreciate that. So his energy, his intellect, I've always enjoyed his thoughts around the importance of us educating ourselves, and economics and all that good stuff was important. And I like the man he was just as a man. He was, you know, a good person. He would be number one. I love Martin, and, you know, Carter G was, like, a lot of people inspiring me. Harriet Tubman, you know, a lot of Black women that have led this movement, especially in education, all inspired me. But he's definitely at the forefront.
Cool, Mike. Who inspires you, man? Put you on the spot.
Nah, so I had snapped too, man, because I was saying that Malcolm X is also one of the people that inspire me. And not to add to what he was saying, I think, like, the organization of the Nation of Islam with Malcolm X as that leadership and that mindset, he focused a lot on education, but he also focuses, like, on knowledge of self, and I think that's an important aspect to have in schools in the first place. Think of another person, since Curtis already took Malcolm X, that inspires me. Man, I don't know. I would say my dad, only because he was so much more of an educator than he realized. He didn't go into the traditional. He went and became an accountant, but so much of his free time was spent educating me, my friends at the church, and all those things that I realized. And so many of my friends come to me about, how much they appreciated the knowledge that he shared with them. That, like, I've been able to look back and see, like, one, I was able to have privilege of having a father who spent so much time and knowledge with me, but also how that person is important in other kids' lives. So, like, me being able to be that male role model, that mentor, father figure to other kids is super important in our community. So those would be two people I definitely.
Yeah. I'm actually glad you mentioned fatherhood, man, because all of us on this call right now are all fathers, and we all have children. We all have a son in particular around the same age, like born within months of each other. So, Curtis, and you're someone, we can go deep on just the subject of fatherhood, but I think you've been a father figure to so many people. What does fatherhood mean to you, and what inspires you to be the type of father that you are? He's a great father for people who don't know him. I don't even want to get super deep, but I'm just trust my word on that. But like, how did you learn how to be a great father? You know what I'm saying? Like, what inspires you on that front? Because I think that's a big part of your identity too.
Absolutely, that's number one for me. I ask my kids if I'm a great father or not. So I think, understanding the importance of having that father figure. I think my grandfather and my oldest brother played an important role for that for me, right? So that, like, is that, protection, being able to nurture, because men, we nurture too. So be very clear about that. I think it's important for us to own that and be okay with that as well. But we nurture, we support, we protect. And so I think for me, it's important, like, for me to do, like, I'll have an option. Like, I can't talk about BMEA. I can't be an educator. I can't do any of this work if I ain't taking care of my home, right? If I'm not being a great father, if I'm not making sure my kids, I'm there for my kids, I'm supporting them emotionally, mentally, not only financially, making sure they're good and set for their basic needs, but like just being there for them on those other levels. I think that's just like, it's something that I, at parts of my life, had missed, but knowing how important it was, and knowing when I received those levels of support from folks, like my grandfather, like my brother, I knew it was important to do that. And so I saw, and I went through a rites of passage program when I was in middle school, in 8th grade. And they taught us a lot about fatherhood and the importance of being a man. And being a man is taking care of responsibility. That's one, like, amongst other things, right? And so I have a child I'm responsible for. I have friends I'm responsible for. I have people that I support. I look, who I know look up to me, like, I support them. So it's just like, that's my mom does this very well too, as a woman. Like, she has been a mother to many. So I've seen her do it. So, I've been able to practice that from her as well. Like, I've seen her know how to nurture. My grandmother know how to nurture and be a grandmother to many. So not only did, like, I learned that from me, but like women, actually, my mother and my grandmother really show me what it means to be nurturing and supportive and do all those things that a father should be able to do too.
Good. That's great. I know we're running up against it. We're running almost at 45 minutes. Before I ask, like, my final question to Curtis, I'm gonna jump over to you, Mike, just to talk about, I know we've been going from the podcast a little bit, but there's been a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes with the organization. Like, don't get it twisted. The work hasn't stopped, even in this pandemic, and even though we haven't done the podcast. Mike, can you get a listeners maybe just an update on some of the things that we've done with the organization over the past month and a half, and some stuff to look forward to before we get ready to wrap it up with Dr. Lewis?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, whenever we're not, visually being seen, we're always digging into the work. And I think we've done a really good job of, organizing, digging deeper into what we want teaching to look like for our educators. We just wrapped up our spring fellowship for, developing strong Black male educators. We have some follow-up sessions in the summer to get them ready for the fall. And then we're also preparing for, continuing this fellowship into the fall, another fellowship into the fall and the spring. We've also, in terms of, events, we've been continuing with the village. So we've had 2 events since our last podcast when we introduced the village to everyone. And that's just it's a national educational event with other organizations. We talk about different topics that affect educators of color, and also just support them in learning best practices and things that are going on, especially when you think about, we have a lot of unknowns coming up in this fall. So with the virtual learning and with the current events, like how can we, maintain our focus of education for liberation and being Black, but also, how do we support our students who may be more disadvantaged in this situation with virtual learning? And then also, we as an organization have been planning around, like, how do we support schools with culturally responsive teaching? So schools who may not have Black male educators in the building, right? How can we give lend our expertise and our insight to support them until they have an opportunity and space to kind of like diversify their teaching, their staff, but support them in the culturally responsive teaching for their students.
Good. Thanks for that update. And I would be remiss not to mention, at the time of recording this, just yesterday, we lost 2 civil rights icons in our community. And it's heavy. The year 2020 has been hitting us with a lot. And I just want to talk about, maybe share some space to just talk about the legacy that these men have left for us. Maybe, Curtis, you want to share what they mean to you. And, I feel it's funny because you start to learn about people as you get older. We need to start teaching our people this, like people who just impact our history earlier. Like what, John Lewis in particular, that was someone I became to know like as an adult, but I didn't know him when I was a young kid. But I was like, my early adult years, I learned about stuff he was doing. And I guess just thinking about, Curtis, we'll let you start us off, but just the legacy of his work and how does that inspire you, and, what impact does maybe his death have on you going forward, and, just kind of how you, memorialize his work, but also use it to go forward.
I appreciate that question. I think, and yes, definitely, we definitely acknowledge the work that they've done. And their legacy will continue through our work and through the work of many others. I think for me, when John Lewis, when I found out he had pancreatic cancer last year, I think he was diagnosed like in December or something. It hit me then, like, oh man, we just know what once many folks who pancreatic cancer end up getting at the likelihood of what's next. So, in my head, I was like emotionally starting to prepare. So, the rumors was coming out of like last week and stuff. And usually there's before the rumor. I mean, right after the rumor is the truth, right? And so I was like, man. And so yesterday it hit me, and I watched CNN a lot, MSNBC a lot. I even try to watch Fox every once in a while when I just want to, like, I don't know, but yeah, I do. And so he, I was thinking about something Eric Thomas said yesterday or today. He said, you want to talk about like not letting emotions get the best of you, but like using emotions, like being an emotional leader and using that to like power you through. And I know I'm not saying like he said it, but you get the gist of what I'm saying. And I thought about that a lot. And I thought about, like, I consider myself an emotional leader. People are like, man, Kurt, you be so emotional. You're so passionate, right? And sometimes, you let that get, in front of you, and sort of you miss the target, or you get sort of out of focus. And I think it's important, but he stayed on message from the beginning. And what's most important about him, he was a good human. You don't hear nothing about John Lewis did none. John Lewis ain't embezzling no money. John Lewis wasn't, having no other stuff going on. And, like he was just a great human. And on top of that, he's been fighting this fight for a long time. And someone began to compare him to MLK, like we lost our MLK of our time. That's up here for debate. I'm not here for that, because the point is the work he did up until his death. Like, he stood his ground. Like, when I talked about a leader, like standing your ground, believing in something and going forward and not, worried about what people thought, like he did that. And so, like, I just want to model, like, I want to be a good human. Like, I want to remind myself, like, to do this work, we got to just be good people. right? He was a good human, and he fought the fight, and he fought it unapologetically. Like, being the moral compass for the Congress, for the House of Rep, like that was huge. Like that's what he did. And I appreciate, a lot of people die at 80, at 30, at 50, at 70, and they haven't done much. He's done his job. Now it's up to us, right? It's up to us. It's up to my generation, generation behind me, to continue this work. And I'm hopeful that, I think it's something about this generation coming up. I don't know what generation they are. We got Z, B, Z. Well, I don't know what they are, but whatever letter they are onto something, and we better get on board, or they're gonna leave us behind, right? And so I'm encouraged by that the work is going to continue, because guess what? He started at the same age this group. What I'm talking about is pushing things.
Yeah, that's real. All right, I'm looking at my clock. We're running about 50 minutes in. Mike, before I close it out officially, just talk to us a little bit about what people can expect from the organization, any new things we got on the horizon, events, just, for people to plug in and stay connected with BMEA. Anything you want to just drop on the people real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, besides this podcast, we'll be coming back. We'll have another village event coming up soon. Support people coming with the learning in the fall. We will be planning to further the fellowship. So just keep your ears and eyes open to just the events and announcements coming out from BMEA. The school year's coming up. We want to let people get adjusted. And there's a lot of uncertainty, but one thing's for certain is that we're going to continue doing the work. So
good. And I definitely want to take this time just once again thank our special guest, Dr. Curtis L. Lewis, for just taking the time to join us. He just got off a TED Talk call, something like that. So to jump on the BMEA podcast, we appreciate it. Dr. Lewis, I want to ask you this. I know it's a lot of, and it's a lot of anxiety around this upcoming school year. Now, I ain't going to make you commit to anything, but just what's your thoughts? Being an educator, you're also a parent,
Yes.
Educational leader.
Yes.
What's your thoughts, man, on just where we at and what, what's going to happen over the next few months? Anything you want to share with the people? I had that written down. I hate to ask at the very end.
I think you're done, but guess what? I got one more.
Yeah, right. I just had to ask.
really important.
You know what? Because everybody asks me, and I don't know what to tell them. Everybody I talk to asks me. They say, well, what's going to happen in the fall, Chris? So what's your thoughts?
Like, what's your favorite color? You like, think about how we're going to solve this big problem. Man, I'm going to be honest with you. And I'm coming strictly as a human, as a parent, and as a CEO of BMEA. So I'm speaking on behalf of, I think it's a no-brainer, right? Like, it just has become so political, man. It just burns my soul that we gotta go back and forth, and and I think it's problematic that we are not giving parents an opportunity to make the necessary adjustments, right? So why wait to the end? We know where it's gonna be in August, So to me, it's a no-brainer until we figure this out. And I here's the thing, and I said this before, I'm gonna say it out loud because you gotta take a stance as a leader. So I'm gonna show you what that looks like in person right now. I think people prefer the in-person oftentimes. Take away, no, I'm gonna say this directly. People prefer the in-person because it's easier. Guess what it allows us to do? To continue doing what we've been doing. To actually do a beneficial, remote, robust learning program is going to take hard work and people spending money and us addressing the inequities in education, right? So yes, let's get everybody a laptop. Should have been doing that. Let's make sure our kids have access to this when they're at home. We should have been doing this, right? And then let's get creative in our teaching approach and how we engage our students and what does this look like? Whether we online or in person, we should be doing these things, right? And this new way, or if we go remote 100%, some people, I believe, are afraid of that because it's going to require some work. People want let's keep doing what we're doing. if we send kids back to school right now, guess what we're going to be worried about first and foremost? Health and safety. Ain't no learning going to be going on for real. Say your 6 feet. Oh, you can't be touching her. You don't want to hug. Like, kids, that's what kids do. They touch, they hug, they love each other. Like, teachers are next to a student. A student, God forbid, cough. I have asthma. I cough all the time. Been coughing before COVID. I'm going to cough after COVID, right? And so you get a call, oh my gosh, like, and it's putting, folks at risk. And we think we know a lot about this, but we learn it every day. There's something different. We learn them, now it's airborne. Now, you got to be 20 feet. They ain't say that, but I'm just saying, like, it's, it's a constant shifting and changing. So I think to just keep it safe, like let's work on finding a vaccine for sure. But meanwhile, let's put our hands, our minds together and figure out how do we do this better. And let's do it. And and I think people are scared to do that. So it's let's go in person. And the people, staff are struggling. There's surveys out, that folks are struggling whether they want to go back or not. Parents are unsure whether they want to go back or not. And unfortunately, poor kids, we give poor kids options. So if you got a parent who's an essential worker who works and that's the only means to providing for her family, and you give them an option of whether they go or not, they're going to end up potentially sending their kids. That's unfair. Right? It's who are you giving this choice to, and what's the ramification or the consequences of that choice, right? And so there's things, why can't we provide money for folks to sit at home and be supportive of their kids and extend, unemployment and all, because it's too much work, and God forbid we spend money on people, money on the poor and people don't give me stuff. Why are you doing that, Chris? Why you do this?
I don't even know. I just had to ask because I think
keeping a can of worms, Chris.
Yeah, I know.
Hey, it's not the hey.
Because you said two things. One, the government not trying to spend money on people, and that's root of the problem. Tell people to stay home with their kids, let them learn virtually, and give them money to stay home until we find a vaccine. This is on the government. They got billions of dollars to give to billionaires, but they don't have enough money to give to the people, right? We don't want to talk about that. Second thing is, now we really have to look at and evaluate what we've been teaching these kids this whole time. So now you can't just give my kid these random math problems they can look up anymore. Now you gotta get creative. Now you gotta give them something that is meaningful. Now you gotta give them something that is actually something that is relevant to this 2020 world that they live in. Like you said, you're pushing the envelope now with learning, and people are afraid to do it. People are afraid to change. To me, I'm like, this is perfect. This is the fire that they needed to really change education in the first place. We still in this 1865 model, And I know you guys. I've been plugging this book that I've been reading called The Education of Black and South. I had to bring it up. Hey, it's a good book. Somebody told me it was a really good book.
Say that title again for us.
The Education of Blacks in the South from 1865 to 1930. So it's like post-slavery all the way through Reconstruction, and it just talks about how Black people were the ones that pushed for public school education in the United States, like for everybody. So Black people, W.E. Du Bois, we the ones that got free public school for the United States, and it talked about how its original focus was trying to keep Black people in the low labor market. Like they didn't want them to be involved in politics. They didn't want them to be involved in small business and building their economics. So it just explores the roots of education, which is super important when you think about where we are as education now and how far have we really come in terms of is this what's going to make our students successful? So I know we're on a time limit, Chris. I ain't going to go down my rabbit hole, but you got me sparked up.
Started with this question right here.
Yeah. That was all part of my plan to get to the next episode.
Okay.
Cliffhanger. There's a lot of stuff happening in the world and a lot of stuff to discuss deeper. But we have to first of all make sure everyone understood who Dr. Curtis Lewis is, founder and CEO of BMEA. I know we done held you all a little bit long, so we're gonna get to wrap this episode up. Gentlemen, any last words? We good? Any last things before we sign out?
Let's do the work by any means necessary. Let's go.
Hey, the work. Any means necessary. We want to thank you all for tuning in. We'll be back here in a couple of weeks here on the BMEA podcast, lifting our voices. I'm Chris Watson, signing out for my guest. Of course, my co-host, Mike Payne, also our special guest, Dr. Curtis Lewis. We hope you enjoyed, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.